In South Africa, tons of food go to waste every year. Food waste refers to food that is still edible but gets discarded or left to rot. In light of high food prices and the reality of food insecurity in other parts of the world, what can we as South Africa do to minimize food wastage? Well, to discuss this, we're joined by Henneke van Linge, the founder and managing director of Nosh Food Rescue, an organization that collects food that is on the verge of being wasted and gives it to soup kitchens. Henneke, good morning and thank you very much for your time. You know, one would say in a country such as ours, where many are sleeping on empty stomachs, we wouldn't be wasting food just on a moral front. But there's also the ecological aspect where landfill sites have said continuously that this wastage is not good for the environment or just the atmosphere. Perhaps paint us a picture of the scale of food wastage in the country.
So, the last time a study was done, I think was in 2021, and the conclusion from CSIR was that 10.6 million tons of produce goes to landfill, does not go to human stomachs. 10.6 million tons per year, which is roughly 30% of our production. But it's roughly 45% of the food that is available for South Africans because we are a net exporter. So you're absolutely correct from a moral perspective. With the amount of hunger and food insecurity that South Africans experience, it is a moral I called it a fairly rude thing on BBC television some time ago. But yes, a moral dilemma.
Then when we look at the kind of food that is thrown out, is it cooked food? Are we talking here about vegetables? What exactly is it?
So there's food loss and food waste across the board, from farm to fork. So there's different types of loss and different types of waste. And we like to say that food is not wasted until, waste is a verb. It is surplus until we waste it. So because of the economic the economic way of dealing with food and the safety around it, the liability, the legal aspects, there is attrition and loss at every single step of the way. So it's not just in households. As a matter of fact, it's only about 18% in households, about 48% between farm and retailer. So the processing methods and the legalities around it need to be looked at. Every step of the food system, of the cold chain, food chain, is a problem.
What a powerful statement you make there. You say it is in fact a surplus until it is wasted. Then comes your organization. How do you assist in this regard?
So we refer to ourselves as a meta charity. We're not in a position to help individual households, but we help a network of soup kitchens, shelters and feeding schemes with their endeavors. So our network is such that donors approach us and say we have X surplus left over. One of our famous donations was 20 tons of chicken feet. So interesting to see that in a previous snippet. Imported chicken feet, because we are a net importer of meat products in South Africa. We then check which of our beneficiary organizations are best suited for that produce, and then we organize distribution so that our beneficiary organizations can then plug those sort of items of produce into their feeding schemes.
So you're more on the distribution side. But broadly speaking, because this has been our focus, food insecurity. Yesterday I was speaking to a professor who indicated that at the heart of it here is government's inability to assist households with subsistence farming, be it training and even just making land available. Where do you stand in this whole conversation around dealing with hunger in the country?
So I hear you, Nomfundo, and it's something that's very close to my heart as a permaculturist as well. And part of what we're busy building up is a skills development and training program for our beneficiary organizations and their beneficiaries, which will help them with all aspects of the food chain. Because, you know, while they're waiting for a handout or while they're waiting for their porridge at the school, there is still resource, you know, maybe in their homes or agricultural land that can be utilized. And I absolutely agree that our farmers and budding farmers are being failed at the moment because they don't have the resources. They might even be given land, but they don't necessarily get the resources by way of money for irrigation or for equipment or training on farming skills. It's no use having a piece of land if you don't know how to farm. And indeed, I believe that the project of land distribution, etc., is indeed failing most of our farmers, and it is very, very sad.
Well, certainly very sad. And then how do us as ordinary citizens assist? Because we mostly sometimes do have the food, but we generally wouldn't feel comfortable sometimes even giving to an ordinary person on the street because people don't know if the food that you've cooked was just too much and you just want to share, or what is in it. So it becomes so difficult for ordinary people sometimes to actually share even if they really want to.
Look, I think we have a culture of sharing in that way that goes a long way back, and we are forever handing food out of our car windows as South Africans. We are a very big-hearted nation, but I understand that there are ingrained sort of dignity issues around it where we don't necessarily feel that it's dignified for us to give and for people to receive like that, and that's something that we need to unpack. But I think as ordinary citizens, if you prefer to get involved through an intermediary, then approach somebody like Nosh to say, I've had a function, there is a bunch of food left over, can we deal with it that way? Or as a farmer, I cannot get rid of this crop to the people who normally buy it. Let us interact with the Nosh Food Rescue to see how we can place that with beneficiary organizations. Reach out to shelters and feeding schemes in your area to say, I have this. Is it useful to you? Ask the question rather than perhaps in a high-handed way, without dignity, impose. Rather reach out to the beneficiary organizations and say, can we work together? Can we do this? Is it easy for you to, if we freeze it and then bring it to you? You know, is this useful for you? I think ask the question, build up those communication sort of channels with people in your area that feed others.
Henneke, you do wonderful work. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. That was Henneke van Linge, the founder and managing director of Nosh Food Rescue, an organization that collects food that is on the verge of being wasted and gives it to soup kitchens. And as you heard, you can also get in touch with them and give whatever surplus you have.